Interior, darkened alien landscape, night. Dust devils swirl across a desolate, red-hued alien plain under a shattered sky. Crashed ships' debris is scattered everywhere. Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, suit heavily damaged and limping, helps a severely injured Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, breathing heavily, arm clutched. Rocket Raccoon, missing an ear, bloodied, is hunched over a sparking dead piece of tech.
Oh, no, 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 no. This was supposed to work. This was our one shot.
Ugh, we've had worse shots, Furball. Remember that time we almost turned into space donuts?
That was your idea, Stark. Just a little detour to the quantum realm, you said.
Ah, details. The point is, we improvise. We always do. Rocket, status report. Can you get that thing flying, or are we stuck playing hide and seek with a cosmic horror?
It's dead. Okay? Like my last good pair of thermal socks, the power core is slagged. The warp drive's paperweight. And I think I just coughed up a lung.
Oh, great. He's here. I told you we should have gone left at the celestial rib cage.
Oh, doesn't matter which way we went, Quill. We're here, and he's here, and we finish this together. You two got any bright ideas, or is it just me and my last 8% of arc reactor juice against that?
Right ideas? Yeah. We make them earn it.
All right, let's dance, you purple genocidal maniac.
And see. Daddy. All right, welcome back, Marvel fanatics, to the exhilarating third round of our quest to crown the ultimate champion of the Infinity Saga. We've journeyed through epic battles and witnessed cinematic legends fall, narrowing our colossal field of 23 films down to an elite 6. The competition is fiercer than ever, and the path to glory is becoming intensely clear. For these pivotal third-round matchups, we're changing the game slightly. In round 1, our three hosts will take center stage, diving deep into each film. They'll meticulously weigh the pros and cons, dissecting every scene, character arc, and thematic nuance. By the end of this insightful discussion, each host will have formed a definitive opinion on which movie truly holds the edge. Then, in round 2, the tension will be electric as our three hosts cast their votes. That's right, we're voting. The film with the majority vote will seize victory and earn its coveted spot in the Infinity Saga tournament semi-finals. The stakes are astronomically high. Every decision matters as we inch closer to the grand finale. Get ready for strategic breakdowns, passionate arguments, and the thrilling reveal of which films are worthy of advancing in the ultimate Marvel Cinematic Tournament. Let the debates begin! Alright, we've made it. We're here. It's the third round of the Marvel Infinity Saga Battle Tournament Royale, whatever. So, in the third round, the 6 movies in the third round, we have the number 1 ranked Avengers Endgame. We have the number 2 ranked Avengers Infinity War. We have the number 3 ranked Guardians of the Galaxy. We have the number 4 ranked Iron Man, the number 5 ranked Avengers, and the number 6 ranked Captain America, Winter Soldier. So for tonight's battle, we're pivoting the number 3 ranked Guardians of the Galaxy against the number 4 ranked Iron Man. It's a battle, it's a slugfest, it's mayhem. But I would love to get into round 1. I really would. I really would. But I just can't, Burn, I can't.
Oh, Maddie, don't say that. Anything's possible in this universe. People can fly, space is real, we can travel through the cosmos, and we can certainly find the tail of the tape.
Love it. All right, let's get ready for a showdown between the original Avenger and the dysfunctional cosmic family. Here's the tale of the tape for Iron Man and Guardians of the Galaxy. Here we go. Release date. Iron Man's release date, May 2nd, 2008. Guardians of the Galaxy release date, August 1st, 2014. Runtime, Iron Man, we're looking at 2 hours and 6 minutes. Guardians of the Galaxy, 2 hours and 1 minute. Film budget, Iron Man, 140 mil. Guardians of the Galaxy, 170 million. And then opening weekend box office gross, Iron Man, 98.6 million opening weekend box office gross in 2008. Guardians of the Galaxy opening weekend box office gross 94.3 million. Both very good. Worldwide box office gross for Iron Man, $585.8 million. Really big. Guardians of the Galaxy, sleeper hit, no one saw it coming, $773.4 million worldwide box office gross. And then you're looking at two of the great directors of our age, the one and only Jon Favreau and Jimmy Gunn himself, James Gunn. And that does it for the tail of the tape. We're going to head on to round one. Round one. Fight! All right, here we go. So, round one, this is what we're doing. We're each going to weigh some pros and some cons to develop our opinion and then cast, so we can use it to cast our vote in the second round. So, honestly, I'm super excited for this. Who is the first one to weigh some pros and cons?
That would be me, sir.
Go ahead, Lashmoosh. Take it away, Daddy.
All right, so I think for this one, we will, we'll go chronological like I've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
For Iron Man, the original, started it all. For pros, like I just said, started it all. I would give that a pro. Like the impact of this movie was definitely a pro. Like it kicked everything off. Very, very important. Another pro, you look at all the other movies in the MCU, like the leading man, like the actor. I think everyone can agree, like when it comes to the actor playing a part, like Iron Man is 100% like Robert Downey Jr.'s role. You know what I mean? Like it's not, he's not going to be able to be replaced ever when it comes to that. And for cons, I would say now, because this is the original movie, that it kind of is like a product of that being made so long ago. Like the special effects and like all that stuff are not quite as good as some of the other movies are. And with it being new, like he didn't have a lot to like, Iron Man didn't have a lot to like lean on. There wasn't like a world around him that like all these people were like interested in and everything. If you call that a con. Oh, and one more pro is that like they really did in this movie, they really did stick to like that was like a comic book story, what they told. But yeah, that's my pros and cons for Iron Man. And are we moving on to Guardians, or do you want to all do Iron Man first?
Maybe, yeah, let's all do Iron Man first, and then we'll go to Guardians pros and cons. So, Bern, what do you got for pros and cons for Iron Man?
My pros and cons for Iron Man. I think Liam made a great point, and I'm going to echo that. Robert Downey Jr., an iconic performance, maybe the most important performance in the entire MCU, for a lot of the reasons Liam said. If he doesn't nail that and give us someone really, really interesting, a flawed character to root for, I don't know if this whole thing kicks off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Leads me to my second pro, which is it set the tone for the attitude of what the MCU was going to be. Our heroes, some of them are brasher than others, but our heroes they're going to be brash. They're going to believe that they're put in that position because they were meant to do that. And that's always one of the biggest questions of, anybody who's a hero in a comic book or someone who's running for a political office in the real world. Like, why do you think it should be you?
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr. left us absolutely no question as to why it thinks it should, it should have been him. And I guess my third pro of it is we really need to establish a couple things here. The Avengers are Earth's mightiest heroes, while the MCU in general is going to take us all across the world, all over the galaxy, to galaxies far, far away, trademark. and all over the universe. RDJ, his portrayal of Iron Man cements that he is here. He's on the planet. He's here for the cities. He's here for the people. Before we even need to start thinking about space, he's the guy who's going to be here to save us all.
Yeah.
Cons for Iron Man. I don't have a ton of cons for Iron Man. I think it starts really hot. It takes a little while for us to get into the Iron Maniness of it all. They do a really nice job in the cave. My major con would be that I think they kind of gambled with the main villain, Ironmonger. Great villain, great way to set up the character, but I don't know that it was the most compelling thing. If you went through Iron Man's catalog and we're going to introduce him, I don't know that another guy in a huge metal suit would have necessarily been the way I went. Bridges was great. The whole thing worked, but that's my big drawback on Iron Man.
All right, very good. So here we go. Here's my pros and cons for Iron Man, which was released in 2008. So, like you both alluded to, excellent origin story, right? Robert Downey Jr.'s performance, phenomenal. Of course, it set the tone for the MCU, right? Like, there is no anything else if this movie isn't a massive, massive hit, right? Like Captain America, Thor, Guardians, none of that would exist really without this being the massive hit that it was. So that's all there. But for real, I would say my first pro would be the strong character focus. So while there's action, the film does heavily rely on character development, particularly Tony's internal struggle and his relationships with Pepper Potts and Obadiah Stane, right? Like those in this in the when he's in when he has the come to grips meeting, in the or in the cave where he's using his own tech to build his stuff, and he's created all this violence through his creations or in his inventions. He does have that realization, which is strong character focus. Another pro is it's a realistic tone, especially for a superhero movie, which I think kind of was in vogue at the time. But compared to some other superhero films, Iron Man felt more grounded and gritty, especially in its initial scenes in Afghanistan. And those ones, like, the violence was very much there. Like that opening scene where those soldiers die is rough, really good. It still holds up. And then memorable villain. Obadiah Stane, Jeff Bridges delivers a strong performance as Stane, providing a solid antagonist who feels personal to Tony. Like we talk about Tony's father, it'll be, continued storyline throughout, Iron Man's time in the MCU. But the fact that his first villain was his at time father figure with Stane really started strong. So that was a pro for me. Then some cons. We're looking at some pacing issues. So the middle section where Tony's developing, protecting his suit can feel a little slow at times for some viewers, especially not like the comic book savvy people. So there was some pacing issues that caused some cons. And then while well acted, the Obadiah Stane character, very predictable. While well acted, the mentor turns evil trope is a fairly common one in superhero origin stories. But being that this was the first superhero one, it kind of gets, put under the rug because it was very well performed by Bridges, and this was a new type of superhero movie with the MCU. And then, it was the first one, and Liam kind of touched on this about not having a world to live in because it was the first one, super limited scope. You know what I mean? Being the first film, its scope is more contained, focusing primarily on Tony Stark's world rather than the cosmic and global threat, which might feel small to people watching it, rewatching it, because it was the first one. But at the time, that was more, I don't know, it almost made it bigger in a way at the time, because if you were a comic book person, you're like, you have no idea the world we're stepping into is Stark. We could go a million different places. But for the person who isn't the comic book mind, like myself, the amateur viewer, it was really like, okay, this was good, but I don't know where to go. But some things that, were one thing, I guess, that kind of started here and stopped here was the implied adult content started in Iron Man and stopped because that stuff wasn't in any other MCU movie. Feige was like, look, we are not banging hooas and getting with Maxim models anymore. Okay, the MCU's going somewhere else. Maybe Black Widow will hold Hulk's cock, but that's about it. Okay. So those are my pros and cons for Iron Man. I felt pretty good about him. Anyone else got anything before we move on?
Nope.
Peter Quill had a chick uh in his ship, remember?
That's
You're
true.
right. It's very, very few and far between, though. Very few and far between, though.
I think that
There
chick
is,
in Iron
yeah,
Man, he
but
does say in Iron Man 2, like, oh yeah, she did a spread on Tony. And he was like, yeah, and then she wrote a piece in Vanity Fair as well.
yeah.
You're right. Matt, you're right. They keep a couple little jokes, but they do not make Tony Stark the absolute man whore that
Oh, dude, they're
he's
talking in the
he
first
is.
one. That's all they're talking about. Like
Yeah.
this, but it did add to the realism of it because if you're soldiers, right? Like all you're gonna talk about is all the hot chicks he banged. You know what I mean? Like,
Uh-huh.
come
Well,
on,
it was
dude.
they're going through. Is it true you had sex with every Maxim model? And like that first scene, and he's like,
Oh,
"No, I missed January,
but
but
December was twins.
December was twins, so yeah,
Yeah,
we count it."
great. And then he bet, but Potts says it's best when Potts takes the bitch out when she's like, I do everything for him, including taking out the trash, and it's time for you to leave. Like so fucking good, right? So okay, well that does it. I really like our pros and cons list for Iron Man. Some of the main pros were it started it all, right? And then there is no one else that can play Iron Man, right?
hmm
No one can play Iron Man but RDJ, right? And then it did, it origin story really set the format of how you're gonna do an origin story. So really good pros. Cons, like we said, the time frame coming back, like I mean, when it was made, it still holds up a little bit. But there's not a ton of cons. The pacing issues, like we talked about, the limited stuff. But that's just what they had at the time. If they were to remake that, it would be fucking to the nines. But I kind of don't want them to. I kind of like it where it is. So, okay, that does it for pros and cons for Iron Man. We're going to move on to some pros and cons for Guardians of the Galaxy. Liam, I guess we're going back to you, big swinging dick. Let's have it.
All right, we're gonna get into the pros and cons for Guardians of the Galaxy now. First and foremost, I think one of the major pros of this movie was the music. I think the soundtrack is like something that really like added to the feel of this movie and like made it its own thing, like made it its own awesome, like soundtrack separate from everything else in the MCU. Uh, Additionally, another pro would be like the set design, like the scenes, like all the worlds they go to and everything, like all this weird, cool stuff that you just haven't seen before in the MCU up
Oh,
until
yeah.
now. And then I would say another pro is the script, like the dialogue in the movie is like really, really good. Like the interactions between the team members of Guardians and like it's just on point. So much better than a lot of the other movies. As far as cons, I would say con for Guardians of the Galaxy is I wasn't that big on the villain, like that big on Ronan. I didn't think he was that like interesting of a character, but they kind of made up for it in other ways. And then another con was, just for me, for like comic book guy and stuff. Again, going back to Ronan, like the way Drax got beat up like that, it just that wasn't good for me. So that's my cons. But all in all, like very strong movie though. Those are I'm
Yeah.
nitpicking there with those two. Those are my pros and
You're
cons for
yeah, but
Guardians.
but valid points though. Valid points.
Mhm.
You got to respect the source material like we've talked about. But yeah, there's so much to love about this movie. It's tough to find a con. But Burn,
Mhm.
go ahead, give us your best shot.
All right, Guardians of the Galaxy, pros and cons. Here's my first pro for Guardians of the Galaxy. Fucking daring, man. I can't believe Marvel dropped their nuts on the table and we're
Yeah,
like, there's a bunch of characters, and don't forget, we talked about how the Avengers in themselves were not the most popular characters in the Marvel comic universe. They
in
weren't, you
comics
know,
as well. Yeah,
exactly what I mean. In comics, like Captain America, Hulk, but he's not Spider Man. He's not any of the X Men. So the fact that they were feeling themselves on the Avengers and we're like, what we're gonna do? We're gonna take an even deeper dive into the Guardians of the Galaxy, for me, this movie will be incredible because maybe it beat my expectations harder than anything else did in the whole MCU they did. I couldn't believe Marvel had the balls to do this. And then I saw the movie and I was like, you guys, oh, so you guys can do anything you want. As long as if you have the right writers and the right directors, you can make a story that's going to suck me in completely and do anything you want. I think just the rock solid nuts to go Guardians of the Galaxy early midway through phase two is my first pro. Second, it's so personal. It's so personal to Peter Quill. We have a lead character, and like it starts with his mom, it ends with his mom. It's all about connection. Leah mentioned it's a great script in the way they interact. It's a great script in the way that we learn the relationships between these characters, but it's also a great script in the way that we learn like subtly who all these characters are. And even though they kind of missed on Drax and kind of missed on Ronan, we still have an idea of where they were coming from, right? We still have an idea. We know exactly who Nebula is. We don't know anything about Rocket or Group. We know who they are. Peter Quill, he misses his mom, man. I mean, who doesn't resonate with that theme? And my third huge pro is, man, they got us to space. They got us to space. I know we saw a little bit of space in the Thor movies, but they got us to space in a way that showed how big and weird and crazy and important, and it expands the story a million ways. And there's no way to do the Infinity Saga if they don't make us comfortable in space with like a real personal story that we kind of forget they're on a spaceship traveling around. They could be on a jet moving around America and figuring stuff out. Getting us to space and getting us to space in a way that we actually gave a shit about it, and it wasn't just like, oh, cool aliens. Huge, huge, huge pro. My cons, and Liam was absolutely right. My biggest con is that they missed on Drax, but they missed on Ronan. And man, if this movie had a top 5 MCU villain, it'd be number 1 with a bullet. You know, it would be number 1 with a bullet. They were close. They got a good actor. They just did not write that interesting of a part for Ronan. At a certain point, the stakes are not huge. Now, this is kind of a pro and a con. It's like almost like a heist movie. But the stakes are not, until we find out what those Infinity Stones actually are, don't make a lot of sense on why these people be risking everything for this. And there are moments early on where it's a little bit silly, and I was worried, like, oh no, is this the Marvel swing and a miss? Now, I can go back now and appreciate those silly moments, but at the time, I was genuinely worried that maybe they made a misstep. Not great cons. I think this movie is pretty great, pretty exceptional, but there were a couple things that caused me to pause early on. That's my take.
Very good. Love it. All right. So good stuff, Bern. All right. So a lot of it I agree. So here's my pros and cons for Guardians of the Galaxy. So a lot of this stuff I agree with you guys, right? Like a soundtrack, groundbreaking. You know, the Awesome Mix Volume 1 is a character within itself, really. Perfectly integrated into the story, elevating so many scenes. And it started like, it was probably one of the most iconic soundtracks in superhero cinema. And really, you know, opened us up to James Gunn, the way he thinks, the way he views things. And then the visually, agree with you guys there too. The film it boasts of vibrant and imaginative alien worlds, creature designs, action sequences that are distinct from other MCU films, because we've seen a ton. This first, you know, Iron Man came out in 2008. This one came out in 2014. So there were 6 years of MCU movies that we had seen in between this, and nothing was like this visually, action wise, anything. So they did a great job with that. And then, you know, I agree with you guys as well as far as like there was a lot of heart and emotion There was a ton of humor. Despite the humor, though, the film has genuine emotional depth, especially in Peter Quill's struggle with his past and forming the found family among the Guardians. And the mom stuff, like they get through that, like at the end when he's holding the Infinity Stone and he reaches out and he finally grabs his mom's hand, which he didn't in the hospital. I mean, come on, come on. Great stuff. But one of the things I think we're sleeping on, right? And I'm going to shout out casting director Sarah Finn for this because this ensemble cast and its chemistry is nothing short of fantastic. The chemistry between Chris Pratt, Zaldana, Batista, Cooper, and Vin Diesel is exceptional, and it truly feels like a dysfunctional family. Couple other noticeable movies that Sarah Finn's the casting director on: Avengers Endgame, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Crash. So she's done some stuff, right? And then the unique tone and humor, right? Guardian stands out with its irreverent, quirky, and genuinely funny humor. It embraces its weirdness and doesn't take itself too seriously, which was a breath of fresh air for the genre. I think we would all agree, especially coming off the third Batman had just come out. The Thor 2 took itself too seriously. You needed a little dose of humor with some seriousness, right? And then, Byrne, I totally agree with you with this. Introduced a new corner of the MCU, baby. We went to a whole new part of the galaxy, met some massive villains, we met some massive heroes, we went to some great, I love Nowhere as a place, right? I love every time we go there. It looks great, super cool the way it's put together. Benicio del Toro, amazing performance, another great casting, right? So it successfully brought a lesser known Marvel property to the big screen, expanding the comic side of the MCU significantly. But there were some cons. I agree with you, Liam. Generic villain. Ronan the Accuser is often cited as one of the MCU's weaker villains, lacking complex motivations, and he feels a bit one dimensional, right? Which we've talked about, which isn't true to the source material, right? And then, dude, I got to go over it again. I talked about it with Iron Man, but it's the pacing. The pacing in the middle. Some critics felt the second act could drag a bit, particularly before the team fully gels. There are some pacing elements that are okay, we need to keep moving, but it wasn't terrible, right? So that's a little con. But the reliance on pop culture references, which at the time was great, but I love how in the third one they really got away from that. You know what I mean? This one relied a lot on it, though. While it's a pro for many, some might find heavy reliances on 80s pop culture references to be a bit overdone or potentially date the film in the future, which, yes and no, it does, but there was some great ones, right? And I love that Infinity War, Kevin Bacon got brought up again, and they went over Flashdance, and that's kind of the last time they talked about it, but they did kind of, I don't know if they relied on it too much, but I'm glad that
unless you watch the Christmas special.
Right. Well, but I'm glad that they did touch it, but they didn't abuse it. Because they could have rested on their laurels for the second and third one, which they didn't do. And then, but honestly, the plot, I don't even think I want to call it standard, but while the characters and tone are unique, the overall plot of misunderstood heroes must stop a generic bad guy, that was the problem, right? Not the heroes themselves, not the group together, but their plot to stop just a generic, guy from getting a MacGuffin is it's standard superhero fare, but really good. So those are my pros. Those are my cons. Drop some nuts on some chins, but that'll do it. Are we got anything before we move on to round two? Did I do the round one? I did round one. I
Yeah.
said round one. Round one. Foot. Yeah. I thought so.
No,
Anything before? Go ahead, Bern.
You can cut this, Patty. No, I think it's perfect. I think everybody's made their cases. I think we go to round two now. Everybody give a brief, couple, minute or two, and then say what your vote is.
You know what, Bern? You said that so elegantly. I'm not going to cut it.
Oh, shit. All right. Well, let's go.
Also, crazy. Think about this, guys. We've been at it for 30 minutes. Isn't that wild? Flew by. So I'm going to
Woo.
leave all that in too. So either way, let's keep it moving. That's none of it for round one. We're going to head on to round two. Round two. Fight! Okay, so for round two, we're going to give our votes in the order that we gave the pros and cons. So it's Liam with the first vote, Byrne with the second vote, and your boy, old Uncle Matty, holding it down for the third vote. Which may be the deciding vote. We don't know. But as we said, the winner will move on to the semifinals of the first ever Marvel Cinematic Infinity Saga tournament. Liam, the floor is yours.
All right. I gotta say, when I went back and watched these movies, I definitely liked Iron Man more than when I originally saw it. I'd like going back to visit. Iron Man, like Robert Downey Jr., you can't beat it. But when I really look at both movies, just Guardians was like different and weird in like the best way possible. And I have these movies so close, but I really just can't. I can't not pick Guardians. I have to pick Guardians. Guardians is my vote.
Okay. Liam is selecting the number 3 ranked Guardians of the Galaxy over the number 4 ranked Iron Man. Very good, Liam. Thank you.
To me
Byrne,
now.
go ahead. Yep.
You know, guys, listen. We all love Gemini. We all love AI. They picked one upset in the first round. No upsets in the second round. It's time for the humans to take control. Guardians of the Galaxy is one of my absolute favorite Marvel movies of all time, but it just comes up a little bit short. I might have it over Infinity War. I might have it over Endgame, but I cannot put it over Iron Man. Robert Downey Jr. gives the most iconic performance in the entire MCU. He is the point of view character for 21 movies. What he does, says, and the way he moves affects everything about him. We get a little bonus Nick Fury at the end of this. Remember the post-credit scenes when they like used to matter? Like when they used to matter and follow up on them right away? Nick Fury waiting in that house for the Avengers Initiative. The hair on the back of my neck standing up. For me, none of this works if Robert Downey Jr. is not the most iconic character and actor in the entire MCU. My vote is for Iron Man.
It's fair. That's fair.
All right. So we have one for Guardians of the Galaxy, and then we have one for Iron Man. So it comes down to your boy, old Uncle Matty. Here we go. All right. So while Iron Man gave us the iconic start to the MCU, right? It's a solid origin story. The rich guy builds a suit, fights a bad version of himself. It is a formula we've seen. Guardians, though, it's a burst of pure, unadulterated originality. It took a group of obscure, quirky characters, a talking raccoon, a walking tree for crying out loud, and made them the most lovable, dysfunctional family in the galaxy. The humor is sharper, the dialogue is snappier, and the heart is huge. And let's not forget the soundtrack, of course. It's a character in itself, perfectly weaving into the story and giving the whole film an irresistible energy that Iron Man just can't match. So for me, I think Guardians proved that the superhero movies could be different, pushing boundaries and delivering pure joy, making it the more innovative and ultimately the more memorable film. Guardians 2, Iron Man 1, Guardians of the Galaxy, moving on to the semifinals of the first ever MCU tournament, MCU Infinity Saga tournament. That's how it's done, boys.
Oof.
Burn your thoughts.
I mean, listen, this was not easy. You know, it gave me no pleasure to pick the
We're all
flaws out
about
of
giving you
Guardians.
pleasure, Davy.
So really, it's been a while. But I will take this loss gracefully because really, this was razor thin.
We're all winners here.
I don't even know if I like Iron Man like more than I like Guardians, but I do think it's a more important movie. I can see the argument either way. I'm a little
Yeah.
disappointed, but I can't be mad. I'm walking out of here with my head held high. I mean, it
Yeah.
was a
Yeah. Yeah.
slobber knocker
Yeah. Yeah. You
and
should walk out with your head held handsome.
a great opening tilt for our third.
Oh, great way
I'm
to start
at
the
it.
third round. Great way. Lashmoosh, what do you got, Daddy?
I agree. We could not have started better. That probably, like to date, like was definitely the closest two movies we could
Yeah.
have put together. We just did
Yeah.
that right now. That's a you
Yeah.
don't get much closer than that. And that
No.
is what you want to see. You know what I mean? That's what the fans
Yep.
want to see.
That's why you play the game. That's why you play the
So,
Right.
games.
man, the first movie moving on to the semifinals of the MCU Infinity Saga tournament is Guardians. So then the remaining movies we have
Give us the
Guardian.
matchups.
The next matchups we have the number one ranked Avengers Endgame going against the number six ranked Captain America Winter Soldier, and then
Don't
we have the
sleep.
number, which I mean that'll be, come on, and
Don't sleep on
then
that.
no, don't sleep on Winter Soldier,
Don't
Daddy.
sleep on that.
And then we have a number two ranked Avengers Infinity War going against the number five ranked Avengers. And then we have a special surprise for the fourth member of the semifinal, or the fourth, but we'll let you know about that later. So yeah, so we got a big third round here before we get to the semifinals. Man, what a way to kick off the third round. Super excited about this. But speaking of being super excited, this has been another episode of the Working Perspectives podcast presents the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Saga Battle Tournament Royale. In case you're wondering, find all our stuff and all our content on all podcast platforms and YouTube at Working Perspectives Podcast. You also on Instagram at Working Perspectives Podcast. Join us on Twitter and TikTok at Working P Pod. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, please email us at workingperspectives@gmail.com. And please like and subscribe. And we'll keep bringing you this incredible, amazing content. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Thanks. See ya!